Right.
I've got one. Have you got one?
No, you don't.
Okay. When you think about the formula, this is really intriguing, a conversion formula. Do you think you've got enough data to give to a statistician to ask and then ask them to generate a formula with some obviously some confidence limits?
Mm-hmm.
Do you think that you've got the data that would be required to create the formula?
I guess like I've said, that's lots of factors that can affect the readings of the accelerometers. Body weight, body conformation, just 2 out of million of them. So there's a study, a human study that did come up with a conversion formula that apparently works. But then they look at heaps more factors, like I can't remember what they are,
Okay.
but they look at heaps more factors before they actually factored those into the formula.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So if we knew the body weight of the animal, which category it was in,
Mm-hmm.
we could say the extent to which you have confidence in a conversion formula just using the UA. So you would. Do you think you've got the data to do that? To allow a researcher to risk an error rate, but publish the error rate dependent on a very much cheaper piece of technology, but that when they publish the results, they have to accept that there's an error rate that's being specified. Do you think that's a way forward?
It's definitely possible, but I would really want to factor in all the other, body combination and everything else.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And if they're $27 plus shipping,
Yeah.
what do you think about putting them in 3 planes?
That is a really good idea, but so far I haven't come across any human studies or any
Right.
studies at all that
Okay.
would do it that way. It's
Right.
very interesting thought, just no one has ever done it.
What
I guess
about-
it might be a next step or,
Okay.
you know,
What about saying what about again? What about the memory and download facilities? You touched on the Actical being a lot more
yes.
appealing in that respect. If we did use 3 UAs in 3 planes, would we still have to compensate for a lack of interface? Are they very easy to download and read?
Yes, they are. This particular model doesn't have internal memory, so every time I collect the data, I actually basically walk up to the dog and have a look at the number. But because it's more the cheaper extreme of the range of UA that's on the market, so perhaps the more expensive one that have internal memory and more functions.
Okay.
So it would be more comparable to
Okay.
TA in that sense.
But you just get a unit, a single number out of it. You
Yeah.
can't get traces over time, whereas the Actical.
For the more expensive UA, you can.
Okay.
Yeah. They
How
do
much
that.
more expensive? You know?
I think some goes up to 100.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
A lot cheaper.
Mm.
I have a question.
Yeah.
You're saying that the UA has got a higher step count in average than the TA, but the TA is presumably picking up steps on more axes
Yeah.
than the UA, so it seems kind of counterintuitive that the UA is picking up, or it's reading more steps,
Yeah. That's
even though
very
it's only
interesting.
doing it
Mm.
in one axis. So I'm wondering, like, if you have 3 of them, like, I guess you would just kind of add up
It means
the
really
steps. Yeah, if you had 3 UAs, like Paul was saying, and put them all on the facing different axes, then you would end up with, I guess that there probably would be a great deal of overlap, and you would just kind of add up the numbers on each of them. But then you would end up with an even higher number again than what you've got on the TA. Like, do you have any idea what might account for that discrepancy?
Frankly, I don't know. You might have to ask an engineer or someone who invented that. And I guess like this sensitivity of each device is different. Perhaps the TA senses, like the threshold is much higher than UA.
So we might be getting, like, if the dog just kind of leans even, they might be triggering it.
Triggered UA instead of TA.
Yeah.
So that would be one of the reasons.
Or even like if it's maybe the gait of the dog because they're on four legs has like two tips rather than one in a unit.
Yeah. So yeah, I guess it's a tricky area using human products on dogs because you don't know what it's going to do.
Yeah.
I'm certain you did say, sorry, but because you didn't validate which was the accurate one, are the previous studies on the TA pretty convincing that is accurate?
Yeah. One of the studies looked at compared to videography, so
Yeah.
someone made like 1,000 minutes of videos and compared to that, and they found they actually correlate quite well.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that's the right one.
Yeah. John,
Anecdotally, the UAs amongst runners, comparing them to GPS devices, have overscored distance in running. So that seems to fit with what you've found there. I'm just wondering, with the human, you might have mentioned it, assessments when they're validating it, I guess it's partly to do with Paul looking at the 3 planes aspect. I wonder, that I suspect the threshold has an issue, but the fact that the collar is running almost horizontal on some dogs, that there's, on the UA, that there's a forward motion aspect, and then if the collar isn't tight, that there's a bounce and that threshold's ticking over when they pull up. So they're adding 1 or 2 steps as they're stopping, as they're decelerating, whereas the TA may be able to hold that threshold higher because it's dealing with the different planes.
But she had a closer match with larger dogs. So you would think that maybe with a heavier dog that deceleration would be even more pronounced.
Yeah.
I guess that was what I was really curious about is body conformation, because a big dog with bigger legs and bigger movement, that definitely has some impacts compared to a small dog. But according to one other study, there's no difference. So I don't know whether you really trust that or whether it's actually true. I don't know. Maybe perhaps people
So just going to have to find the money for the good one.
yeah, we've got, those are ours here. But whether we want to leave them on farm dogs. Did you have any problems with the active cow?
No, heaps. Yeah, like when I first got it, well, basically there's no instruction manual, so I have to ask Lisa
Yeah.
so like for advice on uses, how do they work, and the reader played up a little bit, so I have to go back to her and ask her how to do it. And the software is another tricky bit. It only runs on XP or something, so, and yeah, it's really old school. So I have to, but luckily her husband is like a programmer, so he gave me this like visual interface, and I could go into there and use XP and do all the studies.
So it's not like
It's
an
really
updated
complicated.
version of the software on
There is updated software, but it's like $1,000 out there online. Yeah.
Well, we must thank Lisa and
Yeah.
Kent in your paper. If there are things that have come up from this discussion that you think you'd like to include in the paper, then do that and then send it back to me.
Okay.
But other than that, I'm really very pleased with what you've done. You should be very, very